Okay, welcome back, everyone. I wanted to jump on here and do this full moon video, full moon in Aquarius. It's happening at 6 degrees of Aquarius. And, there's some interesting uh, developments. We just had the nodes move into the Aquarius Leo sign, and that is relevant because the full moon is in opposition. And so the sun is in Leo now, and the moon is in Aquarius. Um, so let's just jump right into this and put the chart up, and we'll talk about what I'm seeing here. Um, so here we have the moon is actually in conjunction with Pluto, and the sun is in conjunction with Jupiter. And I think that is really going to shape how this feels. The moon, the full moon, illuminates things. And I think with looking at what's going on here, Pluto is that deep, unconscious, soul driven desire, according to Jeffrey Wolf Green. And Jupiter is about our beliefs, about our truth. And when you put this together, what we're seeing reflected back from this full moon is beliefs that may have been keeping us stuck from moving forward. And then now I want to just kind of expand this frame and start talking about the rest of this chart here. Um, I keep coming back to this Neptune new phase with Saturn. Saturn just went new phase back in February. This is something that's been big. And I think this is continuing. And when you put that together with the Barbolt's basket thing, where you've got these outer planets at 4 degrees, Jupiter is starting to break through this and move forward. But I think we still have that opposition between Pluto and Jupiter. And so, what are we holding on to? What are we holding on to out of emotional safety that is maybe stemming from an underlying belief that we have maybe created some rules around our inner community has possibly created some rule systems around these beliefs. And so Saturn just turned retrograde, and Chiron is not far behind it. I think it's in a couple of days. Can't remember what the actual date. August 3rd comes to mind, I think. Don't hold me to that. Put that in the comments if you have the actual date. But it's going to retrograde. It just recently, Chiron broke into Taurus and gave us a taste of what's coming up. And I think that as it retrogrades back into the final degrees of Aries, where it's been transiting for quite a while, we're going to start to see some of the values and where our self-worth comes from, and themes like that. It's also about kind of things that we've been holding on to, survival strategies that have probably come out of this new identity structure that we're trying to birth and bring into reality. Births, are messy, and they take a lot of effort and care and nurturing once it starts. And I think you can bring Mercury into this. We've just gone through, a full retrograde period of Mercury in Cancer. And so um, one of the one of the things that I see with this is, we're going to review and go back over the structures that we've started to create from this new place or this new identity. we wiped out a lot of these, dissolved a lot of these old structures because they just weren't serving us. It was keeping us small. Um, and it served well at one point. It was a brilliant strategy, but it is no longer, it was no longer getting us what we wanted. It's no longer, in fact, it's preventing us from getting us what we want. And I think that as we get further into this, we're starting to really solidify and understand what it is we want. You've got this north node here is in a semi-square with Saturn, where whoops, where I really think that puts us into the crescent phase again. And as we talked about before, this crescent phase is about establishing our roots and really firming up and getting strong before we move forward and finding that value, meaning, and purpose in something. And once you find that, then moving forward, you're stronger and you're able to withstand what it takes to move into the next phase, which is a first quarter phase. And we're going to be doing this. And I love that Chariklo is here, Chiron's wife, to hold space for this. She's such a quiet presence that just really holds space for healing. She was there with Chiron while he was trying to heal himself and while he went through his journey to become the wounded healer. And so when you put that into a semi-square, it's kind of a minor aspect. And a lot of people describe it as this irritant. It's this psychological irritant, that is preventing us from falling back into these old patterns. We can't fall back into it because we're aware of it, and it just becomes uncomfortable. We can't do it. The awareness is there. And so that doesn't mean we're not going to slip back into it every once in a while. But when we do, we notice it and we realize, oh, wow, this isn't what I want. This isn't really getting me where I want to be. This isn't who I am anymore. This is actually protecting, it's a protection strategy that has prevented us from really becoming who we are. This Aquarius theme here, I believe, is something that we're breaking free from conditioning. And I think it's actually quite fascinating. Well, before I go there, I want to talk about the pattern again that I see in these moon cycles. This is something that I've noticed it happens about every 3 years. We go through 9 or 10 months of late cycle new moon, late degree new moons that lead to a full moon in the progressed signs. So we had a new moon in Cancer, and now the sun has moved on in that 2 weeks. It's in Leo, and the full moon occurs in Aquarius. And so I kind of feel like this is an advanced cycle where we are starting to integrate and have the opportunity to push beyond what we've been. And it's kind of a repeated theme of what I'm seeing here. And I really think that's okay, right? It's actually quite fantastic. But I want to bring up the Sabian symbol from James Burgess. He every degree has a Sabian symbol, and the degree of this full moon, we go for 7 degrees. It covers 6 and 7, and this is, at 6 and change here, 46 degrees 40 arc minutes. It's a child born of an eggshell, and I just think that's so beautiful. It's such a cool symbol for this. And then the subtitle is Freedom from Old Ways and Standards. I'm looking down at my notes here. It's a little bit too much for me to memorize, but dramatic changes occur when entirely new mutations occur that break traditions of the past. And I just think that is it's so cool to have that be the cycle. It's conjunct with Pluto, and Pluto is here trying to shatter the norms. One of my favorite images to think about when I think about Aquarius came from Simon Forster. And he talks about it being like a glass that's dropped onto concrete and the pieces shatter and go and accelerate into all the different directions. And I think that that's symbolic of the fragmentation that can happen with Aquarius, the breaking apart, and the acceleration all in one image. I mean, it's such a cool image to think about, right? It accelerates our evolution. And I think that it's just beautiful to have the North Node, Pluto, and this full moon here all at the same time. And with Chariklo there to hold presence, to hold space. Like if you picture the asteroid itself, it has rings around it like Saturn and can hold that container. And it's just this quiet presence that just is there to hold us, right? And with the new moon happening in the late degrees of Cancer, the late degrees of Cancer, that third decan of Cancer, is about that real feeling of home deep inside, and I think that's beautiful, right? It's also about this intuitive, reflective, like this intuitive emotional intelligence that comes from this progressed cycle. That's why I keep looking at these late degree new moons, and then the next full moon, one sign progressed over. And what I mean by that, typically a full moon happens in the sign opposing it. So a Cancer new moon would be a Capricorn full moon. And this is actually in the sign beyond Capricorn, so it's an Aquarius full moon. So I want to go back to this Saturn. Saturn kind of is 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 like the it it creates our it can be the rules that happen in our culture, in our community. And sometimes those rule systems get outdated and they are based on a belief system. This Jupiter and the sun is shining that light into, and the moon is reflecting this back. And so, what's being illuminated here is where these rules were formed based on belief systems that are no longer serving us. Like just because we went through this dissolving period doesn't mean that we don't actually fall into these old rule systems at certain times. And so with Chiron giving us a taste of what we're going to be doing in Taurus, does this match our value systems that we've been living by? And does this help to give us a firm foundation and a solid place to be, solid earth to stand on? Or do we need to adjust those values? And I think where Chiron's going to go retrograde and come back and visit these last degrees of Aries before it moves into Taurus permanently, or not permanently, but for the duration of its transit through Taurus. And so we're going to revisit who we've been becoming, our identity, and the way that this has started to develop. Because remember, this is the new phase between Neptune and Saturn, and it's in Aries, and we're birthing this new identity structure. And do our values match that? And is that deepest wound part of ourselves? Are we able to carry that forward and not get rid of it? Like, that's one of the things that I think is so brilliant about the plural mindset that James Hillman talks about, the IFS part story that goes on. And when you combine all this together, I kind of blend all this into one piece, right? And so, how can we bring all of this forward with this new identity? And when we see times that come forward where we slide into this old rule set, and what could this feel like? It's a rule, it's something that when it comes up, you think to yourself, oh, and it just feels heavy and oppressive, this Saturn, right? It feels like it stifles our freedom, the freedom to be who we are. And I'm bringing this out of this full moon here because I think it's such a big piece of what's going on here. And look, this is in trine with the Uranus, and we've got a sesquiquadrate to Mars. And so I think that's really calling us to back to this curiosity. When these times come up and you think, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this because blah, 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 blah. Here comes the story that we've been living by for a long time. And when that comes up, can we stop and just pause for a moment and stay present long enough to hear that story, but to know maybe there's something beyond this? Be curious and bring that action, that Mars action, into the curiosity. You've got a square between Mars and Venus here, and with Venus in Virgo, that's asking us to differentiate and sort the wood from the chaff, the wheat from the chaff. Mixing up metaphors here, but chop wood, carry water. Let's do the work of being. What are we being receptive to? What what ways are we relational? And how have we been relational with our inner plurality? And maybe take a little bit of humility here and some curiosity and combine that with curiosity. Like our old way would be, to feel guilty and criticize ourselves and to really give, hedons to that part where we take that authority, that inner authority, the Saturn part of it, and run by those old rules. I need to stay small because there's this belief that I might be humiliated. I'm going to blend into the wallpaper rather than move forward. Like, nobody wants to work for a boss that is taking all the credit, taking all of the light of the sun and not sharing that light. And so when we are faced with this situation where we think, oh man, I'm going to have to do this, and it feels oppressive, maybe ask, what are we afraid is going to happen if we don't, if we did something different? And then what is this new rule, and does it match our values? Only we can make these decisions for ourselves as we move forward. What makes us feel more free? We've got a lot of fire and a lot of air going on here. And so it's going to be about, but we're also in a pretty fixed strategy. You've got Chiron in a fixed sign. You've got all of this fixed. Leo is fixed. but you've got this cardinal stuff, but this all is slipping into retrograde over here. And so it's time to review and allow this stuff to come up. We've been pushing forward for a while now, and let's kind of look back and say, how's it working? Like, is this actually matching the, do these rules really work for me anymore? Am I supposed to do this, or do I need to think about changing the rules? Maybe the rule is outdated. And so I really like the way this is all coming together. Um, I think that I was just looking at my notes. You've also got a sextile to Chiron with the North Node here. And so once again, that's a crescent sextile, more young energy. And then when you think about the image of a child being born from an eggshell, like that is pretty cool, right? The eggshell used to protect what could no what couldn't withstand life outside. And so, but at a certain point, that eggshell becomes limiting to its growth, and it has to shatter and break what once protected it so that it can continue to grow and it can continue to develop. And then when you bring the child into it, what is trying to develop, right? When a child is born, they're not who they're fully their potential to be. It's like that acorn that contains a whole oak tree inside of it. It is something that has all of this potential, but it needs nurturing and care and nourishment to develop into what it can further be. And so the image of a child breaking through an eggshell is a beautiful image, especially when you think about what's being illuminated here. What is what is coming forth? What are we starting to see? And then we kind of have that choice, right? Do we want to continue to fall back and live by these old rules, these old cultural rules? When I think about Saturn, I think about the bone mother, right? And the bone mother is asking us to slow down and look at the experiences that we've had. You picture the bone mother, she's sitting atop of a pile of bones of lifetimes of experience. She's the crone energy, the old woman that has that wisdom that is so deep and wise. People come to her for advice, right? So how can we fall back onto that wisdom of our experience? Saturn is an arc of development. It's this slow, long period of development where uh, where we can't possibly know what wisdom comes until we've actually lived through that arc of development. And so it keeps but Saturn is a Capricorn energy. It's a yin energy. And so it's asking us to go inside and feel where that wisdom is coming from. And that's a repeated theme of this Jupiter over here. This Jupiter in Leo is, where can I let the light of my inner wisdom shine through? And what is that reflecting back to me? And and this Pluto conjunction with the moon is, it can be a time where we kind of go inside. And even if we're out and about with other people, we may have this kind of reflective thing going on inside of us that is, where am I stuck? What am I? What is it that I need to get to the bottom of, so that I can move through this, so that I can be myself, so that I can be my unique self and bring my unique light out and let that shine. Leo, and we talked about some of this in the nodal shift video. And if you want to go back and look at that, I'll put a link to that in the comments here. And I'll also go back and link both these together because I think there is a lot of commonality here, you know. So I really like this energy. I was looking around to see if there's anything else that I want to talk about. I think as Chiron moves back, he's going to interact with Vesta and Pallas Athena in these later degrees of Aries. And Vesta is wants devotion and to ourselves. It's a virgin archetype, and in that that Greek mythology, the virgin archetype wasn't about celibacy; it was about being unto oneself and not needing to get outside validation. They chose to refrain from marriage so that they could uh, follow their own path, because back then when you married, you uh, deferred to the authority of your husband. And for women to do that, you know, you were giving up something based on the devotion to yourself. And so I think there's a lot of that. Pallas Athena is that feminine strategy, and you know she was able to defeat warriors and brute strength with wisdom. And she was born, you know, fully armored and came out fully adult. And I think that you can also see an archetype of the parentified child in there too. And so maybe there's something here with the parentified child that we can break free from, and maybe that kind of energy is limiting, but we're not here to toss that out and discard it. There's a lot of great wisdom that comes from, you know, learning to care for yourself and learning to care for others. Like being a parentified child is no joke, right? That can be its own childhood trauma. And I think that there's a big theme of breaking free from that here, especially with, you know, Chiron coming back. I'd have to go look and see if it makes it in conjunction with that stuff, but I've got to imagine it's going to be close, if not. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here. Short, bit of a short full moon video, but I think we've kind of established what a lot of this is about, what I think it's about from this inner psychological level. Why don't you guys post in the comments if you have any questions about what we're talking about here? Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll continue to bring this forward. Not sure what the next videos will be about, but we'll be back soon, trying not to leave any stone unturned, so to speak. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you later. Thanks, guys.